What's up, guys? Coach Ryan here with Project Fresh. Today, I'm going to be talking about making the necessary adjustments. Just want to make sure I didn't have any feedback. So, as I mentioned, my name is Ryan Sanders. I'm the owner of Project Fresh, and have been coaching now for over 13 years. So, not only the owner, but the lead coach here at Project Fresh. And I help people take control of their health, optimize performance, and build sustainable habits that stick. And that includes learning how to get your setup in play for your recordings. So as a certified strength and conditioning specialist and certified sports and nutrition coach, I've worked with everyone from athletes to busy professionals, coaching them through the science and real world challenges of fitness and nutrition. We all go through these challenges together, individually, but also very similarly. And so here I share the stories, the lessons, and the systems that make long-term wellness possible. That's what we want. My whole idea is, and I had a client who shared this with me in the last year in some feedback, Ryan, you demystify the process of getting stronger, of being able to eat, of making this seem a lot more simple than it really is, which it is simple. It's not always easy, but it is simple in process. So today's focus is making the necessary adjustments. I thought it was a good one because sometimes it's very easy to get into a rut, to get into a normal flow of things, and making adjustments are very necessary. A lot of the times it's how you keep progress moving forward. It's how you go from plateauing to progressing again. It's how you address injury, address sickness, address lack of motivation. It's how you address all of the challenges and hurdles to get you where you want to go. But it also helps you maybe get out of the dirt and get back into the clouds. It's an analogy that Gary Vaynerchuk used. I haven't listened to him in the last probably 4 or 5 years, but it's something I remember him saying is living in the tension of being in the dream space, right? 30,000 foot view, and then actually doing the work. So there's a tension there that we want to live between, so that we get to experience both. It's good to dream. 2-3 years ago, I realized I had given up dreaming, and so I got back to it after realizing my discouragement. But also, the adjustments help us with this season too of getting out of the dirt and into the clouds. I got to adjust to change up my goals. I got to challenge myself to do something different, whatever that looks like for you. So all that being said, I just wanted to share a couple of adjustments that I've done and then give the point, the lesson, the reason why. Number one, you might notice that I'm doing my Monday Lunch Live completely different from any way that I've done it previously. I'm standing, right? Usually I'm sitting in a chair. Why is that? My hip flexors are exceptionally tight and my midsection is definitely not what I want it to look like. You might think, Ryan, you're generally flat. Everything looks good. Yeah, I'm sucking it in. I can do the belly if I want, all that fun stuff. But my body fat percentage, my composition, my hips, and my glutes, everything from my pelvis, hips, and glutes are not operating in the way I want to. And so those two things impact my lifting. They impact how I think and feel about myself. And ultimately, it impacts how I show up here and what I do as a coach. So I've gotten myself up into a position where I can stand while I do my work. We've had a walking pad for some time. So now if I'm on a call and I'm not a key component of the call, I can get some steps in while I'm on that call. And it's a lot better setup. So it's an adjustment. Bought the bullet, made the investment, got my full setup done over the weekend. And now I'm in a lot better position to address the issue that is causing me from progressing forward, both in aesthetic and performance. My calf still remains a challenge. And so getting less time sitting is going to help me heal my calf. That may not make sense, but if you understand the mechanics of how we operate with the floor, from our feet up to our hips, and you go, oh, got it. Okay. Hips are a key part of that. Hips are the reason why I had the injury to begin with. But anyway, that's the first adjustment. And so that's the point behind that is investing in self. Sometimes we have to make the necessary investment. It's an adjustment. And you'll hear me keep using the word necessary because there are times where it isn't necessary. But for me, to make this change. I've never had a standing desk in my whole career. From the time I was in college at 18 until now, which is almost double or the same amount of time before college at this point. Can't believe that. Next year, I have always sat, obviously, in university, sitting through lectures, sitting for homework, sitting for eating, basically sitting all day. So any activity would be walking between classes, would be going and playing a pickup game of basketball on the weekend. That was my 4 years of university. And then since then, every job, except for when I'm training people in person, has been seated. I've done a lot of sitting on YouTube, obviously, a lot of sitting doing some of the work I do with the contract that I have. Sitting is a key part of my physical profession, which is crazy, but it's the nature of technology. So I can do it now standing. So made that adjustment as well. So made the necessary investment in myself to see a change. Cool. Number two, I mentioned midsection. I mentioned aesthetic. I think inflammation is another one. Other than how my midsection looks, which arguably someone would say fine, others would say, bro, you're fat. And I'd welcome the second one more than the first one, is the fact that the inflammation in my gut has been an issue and has been preventing, I think, again, more clear minds, better chance for healing. And then also, as I was cleaning up my space, I had a fat stack of papers I had to shred. So while I was down on the shredder, I was also just sitting in a resting squat. And as I sat longer and longer in my resting squat, I started to realize I had some serious pain in my left hip. So all this time I've been thinking it's just in my right side. Come to find, got some issues on the left side. So it allowed me the opportunity to realize got some issues going on here in the core. I personally, as a coach, consider the core your knees to your chest 360 all around. Everything that is the core and ties into the core is the core, not just your abdominals being the core, or maybe your abdominals and obliques, like you might consider in a training sense. This is holistic. I don't like to use that word, but let's just say it's a full perspective of all the systems playing. My muscles, my digestive system, my blood flow is another one. My diaphragm. Well, that's actually a good one. Diaphragm. That's part of the respiratory. So respiratory impacts heart. So there you go, another system. So what's the point for this one? My adjustments, necessary adjustment in my eating. So I took on last week an old fasting schedule that I had done about a year and a half ago. Long story short, that 6 weeks that I did last time merited my skill set. I went from about 15% to 7% body fat in those 6 weeks. I don't think that was accurate. I think I was probably right around 10, maybe 11%. So I'd say I lost about 4% body fat in 6 weeks. My core definitely showed it. I was much leaner. Wife noticed it as well. She noticed it better than I did because we're always the hardest on ourselves. But that was very beneficial. So I started that last week, just finished the last part of it over the weekend. And that was a necessary nutritional adjustment. And so why do I bring that up? Because food is key. You guys might have heard that the United States government just released their updated food pyramid. Visually looks like it's an upside down pyramid, but you'll know that a lot of the focus on food lately has been around protein. You guys know that we focus on protein quite heavily, being the key macro that you want to focus on before you even get into anything else, including calories. Now, obviously, if calories is out of control, I'll address it as a coach. But even above calories, I start with protein first, not because it's part of the craze. The government is way behind on nutritional standards. If that's a surprise, then I would just say go Google it. But long story short, with this particular scenario is that it not only fills your muscle, so you can build stronger muscle and get stronger, or bigger muscle and get stronger, but it also helps many cellular functions the body has. When protein breaks down, it breaks down into amino acids and all those, take care of the many cellular functions that our body needs to operate and stay operating at an optimal level. So making nutritional adjustments are key. Why am I using fasting? Because it's a scenario on top of maintaining my protein intake throughout the week. I don't cut that by any means. It just is a method that has worked really well for achieving the midsection, but also more importantly, the mental clarity. I get a lot more clear mentally when I'm on a fasting schedule. And if you guys want to know more about it, drop fasting in the chat. I'd be glad to share with you individually what that looks like. Third of today for making necessary adjustments. I realized, and this actually came this morning, again, is thought patterns. If we don't address our script, the tape that's playing in our minds, and what we're saying to ourselves, that is going to determine where we go. I've talked about this before. It's been a hard one for me. I'm very outcomes-based, childhood expectations, all the things I've done through my life have all 100%. And I feel like that's fair to say. I know some people do, like, Ryan, you're over exaggerating, but I feel like my whole life has been based on expected outcomes, what I can produce, what I can bring to the table, whether I can show up and perform or not. So when I'm not in that space of performing, I'm telling myself that I suck in so many different ways. It's not necessarily that specifically, but I'm sure if you guys have followed anybody else in the space, you probably heard them say that too, or maybe you hear them not actively working against it. They just simply say, I suck, and then they flip it, and then they're right back into action. So it can go either way. But the adjustment I'm making for myself is paying attention to what I'm telling myself. There's a few key areas personal to my life that I'm directly addressing that. Even just starting this morning, realizing, oh man, yeah, I knew it, but I'm not specifically hitting it dead on, and also being accountable about it. So that is a necessary adjustment that will lead the way as we get into it. As I mentioned last week, it was quitting day on Friday. So for those of you that are 3 days in past quitting day and staying after it, going after your goals on a daily basis, working those habits, having the accountability in place, doing all the different things that are going to help you be successful. Excellent work. Keep it going. Remember that little analogy I mentioned last week. If you spend 5,500 steps or do 5,500 steps a day, you'll be at 1 million June 30th. Half of that is 500,000. That's just an encouragement and example to activity. Whatever you guys are doing there, the mindset, number 3, is really going to determine how things go. And the outcomes are great. Yes, we want the nice, ripped, lean, and able body. If business or work, you want to obviously have the outputs of more income, bonuses, better ways to care and provide for your family, relationships, if you're relational, practicing all the different skill sets that are required to have healthy and consistent relationship, whatever it is that you're focusing on working on. Your mindset, how you go about it, really determines quite a bit of the journey and the process. And again, the outcomes are part of the journey, but they aren't the journey. And I'm speaking to myself on that one as far as making that necessary adjustment. So as we said, we made 3 specific adjustments. 1, investing in yourself. 2, nutrition is always important. Mind, body, spirit, always important nutritionally. And then number 3, the head game, the mental space, are the 3 adjustments that are standing out for me going into 2026. Now, obviously, there's others that we can make, but those are most applicable to myself. Sometimes I'll use myself as a case study for these calls, but I do like to keep things focused on you, the listener, the subscriber. So if you guys have things that you're working on that you'd like to talk about as far as making adjustments, let me know, and I'll be glad to make that a topic for a future Monday Lunch Live. So we'll wrap up there. This is our broadcast every Monday at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 2 o'clock for the people on the East Coast, 11 o'clock going into lunchtime on the West Coast. And for any of those that are up in Canada or others, let us know. Drop where you're watching in from on the chat so that we know where you're connecting with us at this particular time. So let's see, that's 7, 10, 11, 12, 1. Oh no, 5 hours, right? Oh, 1, 2, 3. So that's 8. So yeah, we got someone I spoke with last week who's a listener 8 hours ahead, 8 time zones ahead. So we do have some international presence. Really appreciate you tuning in, getting to know us, and to engage with us as well. So for those times in middle of Europe and Africa, appreciate you guys watching and listening in as well. We'll see you guys next week, same time, same place, and I hope you have an excellent and fruitful